Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Today I'll be providing a review of the main heavyweight touring motorcycles that are available today. These bikes are designed for carrying one or two riders across long distances with loads of luggage capacity. As I have done in a recent video about mid-size adventure style touring bikes, I will be getting into my moto analytics to really highlight the performance differences and price variation among these bikes. The bikes I will be covering are the Honda GL 1800 Goldwing, the BMW GT 1600 GTL LE, the Indian Pursuit Limited, the Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited, and the Kawasaki Vulcan 1700 Voyager. Now, these bikes represent a wide range of design aesthetics and variation in the ride experience, so those main preferences will take precedent over the ratings-based analysis, as they should. For example, if you want an air-cooled V-twin engine, your only option would be the Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited. So really this video is for people who want a better appreciation for what they're getting or what they may be passing up with other bikes relative to their preferred option. I will now provide you with a summary of the key features of these bikes before I get into my detailed comparison of the specifications. Please note that all these bikes come with advanced infotainment and navigation capabilities except for the old school Vulcan 1700 Voyager, which just has a stereo system. All of these bikes retail for around $30,000 except for the Kawasaki, which is a full $10,000 cheaper than the other bikes. Let's start with the Honda GL 1800 Goldwing. The current incarnation is a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. The bike is very high-tech and in my eyes is somewhat reminiscent of a Honda Civic sedan. And I don't mean that as a dig, it's just simply my honest reaction to this bike. Here are some statistics on this bike. The standout feature is the 1833cc flat 6-cylinder engine that produces 125 horsepower and 125 foot-pounds of torque. The Goldwing is a shaft drive. It also has the greatest storage capacity among these bikes at 150 liters. That's between the saddlebags and the top case. The Goldwing also has a forward and reverse crawling mode for low-speed maneuvers when parking. It comes with a 7-inch TFT display. Next is the BMW K1600 GTL LE. This bike is definitely well designed with an emphasis on riding performance with the inline 6-cylinder engine that pumps out 160 horsepower and 133 foot-pounds of torque, which is the highest values for any of these bikes I'm covering today. The BMW, like the Honda, is also a shaft drive motorcycle and sports a massive 10.25 inch color TFT display. As you will see in a bit with these analytics, this bike is set up to be the most powerful, most maneuverable machine in this class and comes with a decent 115 liter storage capacity. Next is the Indian Pursuit Limited. This bike was released in 2022 for the first time. It's basically the Indian Challenger but with a top case. This bike comes with a 1768cc liquid-cooled V-twin engine with a belt for the final drive. Like the BMW, the Pursuit also has a 7-inch TFT display. I can say from my experience in test riding an Indian Challenger about a year ago, this platform handles very well with very good engine output at 122 horsepower and 128 foot-pounds of torque. Next we have the Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited. As I mentioned, this is the only bike with an air-cooled engine in this class and comes with an 1868cc V-twin engine. This bike represents classic American iron with its cruiser underpinnings. For some people, this is the only way to go, but at the same time, there are major differences in performance capabilities that are a trade-off for embracing this aesthetic. In a broad sense, some of you may wonder why I'm including a discussion of the Kawasaki Vulcan 1700 Voyager in this review. To say that this bike is long in the tooth is an understatement, as this bike has remained essentially unchanged during the last 12 years of production. In fact, the video footage for this bike that was produced by Kawasaki, which is the most recent I could find on this bike, was from 2011. But as with the Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited, not everyone is looking for loads and loads of technology or a spaceship-like riding experience. It has the same basic layout of riding position, looks, and storage capacity of these other bikes. The Kawasaki comes with a 1700cc liquid-cooled V-twin engine with a chain final drive. This bike's rated at a rather low 73 horsepower and 107 foot-pounds of torque. As I mentioned, at an MSRP of $19,300, this bike is over $10,000 lower in price than the other big tourers in this class. Now let's get into the plots of the key specifications for these bikes. Let's start with the plot of horsepower versus sales price. We see that the Kawasaki Vulcan 1700 is at the lower end of the range and that the BMW produces significantly more horsepower relative to its price. Here's a plot of horsepower versus engine displacement, and again it's clear that the BMW provides the most power and yet has the smallest engine size. When we look at torque versus motorcycle price, we see a much tighter grouping of the data points, again with the exception of the Vulcan 1700. Here's the companion plot of torque versus engine size, which shows a relatively flat curve. That is, there's no trend of increasing torque with increasing engine displacement. This is mostly due to the variations in the engine configuration among these bikes. Next, let's look at dollars per horsepower. This ranges from the BMW $173 per horsepower to the Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited at a cost of nearly $300 per horsepower. Not really a surprise there, but if we look at the power to weight ratio, again we see that the BMW is the best performer and the Kawasaki is the worst performer. Next, let's look at payload, that is the difference between the gross vehicle weight and the bike's weight versus the weight of the bike itself. We see that the BMW has the highest payload capacity relative to its weight. After that, there's no real increase in payload capacity with increasing bike weight. Now, being able to tour long distances on a full tank of gas is an important metric. Let's look at a plot of total fuel range and bike price. Again, the BMW is the best relative performer in this category with a total range of 350 miles. Finally, let's compare the size of the infotainment screen to the price of the bike in this chart. You can see we really have an inverse correlation where the screen size of the infotainment system is decreasing with increasing MSRP, excluding the Vulcan, of course, which does not have an infotainment system. So we can look at plots of the specifications in a lot of ways. And again, I'm not suggesting that you use a spreadsheet or a consumer reports type rating system to make your next motorcycle purchasing decision. What is clear though from looking at the numbers is that the overall aesthetic of the bike strongly correlates with the type of performance you will get. So choose wisely. To sum it all up, if you want to go with more performance, you would go with a BMW. If you wanted more traditional American V-twin styling and riding experience, you would go with the Harley-Davidson Ultra Limited. If you wanted American iron styling but with more performance than the Ultra Limited, you would go with the Indian Pursuit. The Indian Pursuit also has the lowest seat height at 26.5 inches, which is a full inch less than that of the Ultra. If you wanted the ultimate in gizmos and features, you would go with the Honda Goldwing. And finally, if you were budget conscious and simply didn't want a lot of electronics insulating you from the riding experience, you would go with the Vulcan 1700. Please let me know your thoughts on these bikes. Are you surprised at the differences in performance among the bikes? Also, please be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and thanks for watching.